The kitchen fell silent except for the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock. She stood by the counter, arms crossed, her phone screen still glowing with her ex's latest text message. Her husband sat at the dining table, his coffee growing cold, eyes fixed on the newspaper he'd stopped reading 5 minutes ago. "Did you hear what I said?" Her voice cut through the quiet, sharper than she intended. He looked up, his expression unreadable. "I heard you." "And?" She shifted her weight, waiting for the reaction she'd anticipated. The pleading, the anger, the desperate negotiation. Instead, he simply folded his newspaper with deliberate care. "You want to go clubbing with your ex-boyfriend," he repeated calmly, as if confirming a mundane grocery list item. "Yes. Jason texted me. He's in town for the weekend, and a bunch of our old friends are meeting up at Azure on Friday." She watched his face for cracks in the composure. "Nothing. I haven't seen these people in years." "Okay." The word hung in the air like a foreign object. She blinked. "Okay. That's it." He took a slow sip of his coffee, grimaced slightly at the temperature, and set the cup down. "What else would you like me to say?" "I just told you I'm going out with my ex-boyfriend, and all you can say is okay?" Her voice rose, frustration bleeding through. This wasn't how this conversation was supposed to go. He was supposed to care, to fight for her, to show some emotion. "You're a grown woman. You can make your own choices." His tone remained even, almost detached. "Most husbands would have a problem with this," she pressed, moving closer to the table. "I'm not most husbands." He stood, collecting his coffee cup and plate. "Is there anything else you wanted to discuss?" She felt her chest tighten. "You're seriously fine with this? You don't even want to know why?" He paused at the sink, his back to her. For a moment, she thought she'd finally struck a nerve. When he turned around, his eyes met hers with a clarity that made her uncomfortable. "I assumed you'd tell me if you wanted me to know. You're clearly looking for some kind of reaction from me, but I'm not going to play that game. If you want to go, go. If you're trying to make me jealous or test me somehow, that's your choice too. But I won't participate in manipulation." "This isn't manipulation." The words came out defensive, too quick. "My friends invited me out. Jason just happens to be there. Why are you making this into something it's not?" "I'm not making it into anything. You're the one who led with going clubbing with my ex instead of meeting old friends. You framed it as a challenge." He dried his hands on the dish towel, his movements methodical. "So I'm responding to the challenge you presented. You can go. I won't stop you." She felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. This wasn't the script she'd written in her head. He was supposed to be upset, to remind her of their vows, to make her feel wanted and fought for. Instead, he seemed almost indifferent. "Fine," she said, grabbing her phone from the counter. "I'll go then. And if you have a problem with it, we can just end this whole thing." She regretted the words the moment they left her mouth, but pride kept her from taking them back. This was supposed to make him react, to break through that infuriating calm. He looked at her for a long moment, and something flickered in his eyes. Was it hurt? Resignation? It vanished before she could identify it. "Okay," he said quietly. That word again. So simple, so final. She waited for him to say more, to backtrack, to show his hand. But he simply walked past her toward his home office, leaving her standing in the kitchen with her ultimatum hanging uselessly in the air. She stared at his retreating back, a small knot of unease forming in her stomach. This wasn't how it was supposed to go at all. Friday arrived faster than she expected. The week had passed in a strange fog of normalcy that felt anything but normal. Her husband had continued his routine, working from home, cooking dinner, asking about her day, as if their conversation had never happened. He didn't bring up Friday night. He didn't ask about her plans. He didn't show any sign that he cared one way or another. It was driving her crazy. Thursday night, she tried to bring it up casually while they were watching television. "So, tomorrow night. You're going out with your friends," he'd finished, not looking away from the screen. "I remember. What time will you be home?" I don't know. Late. Probably. Midnight. 1. She'd watched his profile, searching for tension in his jaw, a tightness around his eyes. Nothing. Okay. I'll leave the porch light on. That was it. No follow-up questions about Jason, no requests for her to text updates, no subtle digs or passive-aggressive comments. Just bland acceptance that made her feel more unsettled than any argument would have. Now, standing in front of her closet Friday evening, she pulled out 3 different dresses, trying each one on and discarding it. The black one was too conservative. The red one too obvious. The blue one too. What? She couldn't even articulate what was wrong with it. That one looks nice. Her husband's voice came from the doorway. She jumped, clutching the blue dress against her chest. He was leaning against the frame, dressed in jeans and a comfortable sweater, looking relaxed. Thanks, she muttered, turning back to the mirror. Where are you going tonight? Nowhere. Probably just read, maybe watch that documentary I've been meaning to catch up on. She wanted him to say he was going out too, meeting friends, doing something that would make her feel less guilty about the growing pit in her stomach. Instead, he was content to stay home alone while she went out dancing with her ex-boyfriend. You could come, she heard herself say, immediately wanting to take it back. That defeated the entire purpose. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I don't think that's what you want. Besides, you should enjoy your time with your old friends. You've been talking about missing that social circle. Had she? She tried to remember saying that. Maybe she had, months ago, in passing. Right, she said, slipping into the blue dress and zipping it up. Well, I should probably start getting ready. You look beautiful. He said it simply, matter-of-factly, then pushed off from the doorframe. I'll be downstairs if you need anything. As she applied her makeup, her phone buzzed with messages from the group chat. Jason had sent a selfie from the hotel, looking exactly as she remembered. Same charming smile, same confident posture. Other friends chimed in with excitement about the reunion. She should have felt excited too. Instead, she felt like she was preparing for a performance, though she couldn't quite identify the audience. By 9 o'clock, she was ready. Her hair fell in perfect waves, her makeup was flawless, and the blue dress hugged her figure in all the right places. She grabbed her clutch and headed downstairs, her heels clicking against the hardwood. Her husband was in the living room, book in hand. He looked up as she entered, and for just a second, she saw something in his expression, a flash of pain, perhaps, or maybe just a reflection of the lamplight. He set the book aside and stood. You look stunning, he said. Thank you. She fidgeted with her clutch. You're sure you're okay with this? It was a last chance, a final opportunity for him to say no, to ask her to stay, to give her the reaction she'd been unconsciously craving all week. I told you on Monday. You're free to make your own choices. I'm not going to control you or manipulate you into staying. His voice was gentle but firm. Have a good time. Be safe. She nodded, feeling a strange hollowness in her chest. This was what she wanted, wasn't it? Freedom, trust, no jealous restrictions. So why did it feel so wrong? I'll see you later then, she said, heading for the door. Hey, he called out softly. She turned, hope fluttering inexplicably in her chest. Make sure to drink water between cocktails. And text me if you need a ride. The practical concern felt like a letdown and a comfort all at once. She forced a smile. I will. As she closed the door behind her and walked to her car, she didn't look back at the house. If she had, she might have seen him standing at the window, watching her leave with an expression of quiet resignation that would have stopped her in her tracks. Azure pulsed with bass-heavy music that she could feel in her chest before she even entered. The line stretched down the block, but Jason had texted that they had a VIP section reserved. She spotted him immediately at the front entrance, talking to the bouncer, looking every bit the successful consultant he'd become. There she is. Jason's face lit up as he saw her approaching. He pulled her into a hug that lasted a fraction too long. You look incredible. Marriage clearly agrees with you. She returned the hug, noting the expensive cologne, the designer watch, the confidence that came with career success. You look good too. Consulting life treating you well. Can't complain. Come on, everyone's already inside. The VIP section overlooked the main dance floor, separated by velvet ropes and the implicit hierarchy of bottle service. She recognized faces immediately. College friends she hadn't seen in 5 years, people who knew her before she was married, before she'd settled into suburban routine. The reunion was initially everything she'd hoped for. Laughter came easily, stories flowed with the champagne, and for a while, she felt like her younger self again, carefree, social, unencumbered by the quiet domesticity that had defined recent years. Jason stayed close, refilling her glass, his hand occasionally brushing her shoulder or lower back as they talked. She noticed but didn't discourage it, aware of the attention even as part of her brain whispered warnings she ignored. Remember that night we crashed the faculty mixer? Jason leaned in close to be heard over the music, his breath warm against her ear. She laughed. You convinced everyone you were a visiting professor from Oxford. And you played along perfectly. We made a good team. His eyes held hers for a beat too long. The statement hung between them, weighted with implication. She took another sip of champagne, suddenly aware that she'd lost count of how many glasses she'd had. By 11, half their group had migrated to the dance floor. Jason had been attentive all night, but she'd started noticing him checking his phone more frequently, his responses growing distracted. When another round of champagne arrived, he barely touched his glass. You okay? She asked, leaning against the railing overlooking the dancers below. Yeah, just. I actually need to head out soon. He looked almost embarrassed. Early flight tomorrow, and I'm more tired than I thought I'd be. Getting old, I guess. She blinked, surprised by the disappointment she felt. Oh, I thought you were in town for the weekend. Change of plans. Work emergency. He was already signaling for the check, his attention clearly elsewhere. But hey, this was great seeing you. We should do this again sometime. The dismissal was polite but unmistakable. Within 15 minutes, Jason had settled his part of the tab, made his rounds of goodbyes, and headed for the exit with barely a backward glance. Several other friends left with him, citing babysitters and early mornings. She stood in the VIP section, the music suddenly too loud, the remaining group strangers she'd never been particularly close to. One of them, she couldn't even remember his name, sidled up with a drink and a smile that made her skin crawl. Looks like we're the last ones standing, he said, standing too close. I should probably go too, she heard herself say, already reaching for her phone. The Uber ride home felt endless. The driver mercifully didn't attempt conversation as she stared out the window at the passing streetlights, her buzz fading into a dull headache and a growing sense of unease. What had she been trying to prove? Jason had barely seemed interested in her beyond surface-level nostalgia. The reunion she'd built up in her mind had been ordinary at best, disappointing at worst. And for this, she'd issued an ultimatum to her husband? Her husband, who'd simply said okay. The word echoed in her mind now with different implications. Not indifference, resignation. Not permission, release. As the Uber turned onto her street, she saw immediately that something was wrong. The porch light was off. The house was completely dark. His car wasn't in the driveway. This is good, she told the driver, her voice sounding distant to her own ears. She approached the front door with growing dread, her heels clicking loudly in the silent night. The door was unlocked. Inside, the darkness felt oppressive, different from the normal nighttime quiet. She flipped on the kitchen light and froze. On the table sat his wedding ring, placed carefully on top of a folded piece of paper. His keys lay beside it. The sight hit her like physical force, driving the air from her lungs. With shaking hands, she picked up the note. The paper trembled in her hands as she unfolded it. His handwriting, always precise and measured, covered half the page. You said if I had a problem with you going out tonight, we could end this. I don't have a problem with you going out with friends. I have a problem with manipulation masquerading as honesty. I have a problem with being tested instead of trusted. I have a problem with being treated like an obstacle to your happiness instead of a partner in building it. When you framed tonight as going clubbing with my ex, you weren't looking for permission, you were looking for a reaction. You wanted me to fight for you, to prove my love through jealousy and control. But that's not love. That's insecurity. And I've spent 3 years trying to be enough for you, wondering why nothing I do ever seems to fill whatever void you're trying to fill. I said, okay, because I meant it. Okay, you can go. Okay, I won't control you. And okay, I understand that you're looking for something I apparently can't give you. So I'm giving you what you asked for, an end to this. I'll be at my brother's place. My lawyer will contact you next week about the details. You can have the house. I just want this to be as clean as possible. I hope you found whatever you were looking for tonight. I really do. I'm sorry I wasn't enough. No signature. Just those words, each one landing like a stone in her chest. She read it again. Then again. Her hands shook so badly the paper rattled. The kitchen spun around her, the champagne and shock creating a disorienting cocktail in her system. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to be here when she got home, probably still awake, asking how her night went with that careful neutrality he'd maintained all week. She'd planned to be vaguely unsatisfying in her responses, maybe mention how Jason had left early, let him read between the lines that the whole thing had been a bust. She'd expected him to feel relieved, validated in his patience, and things would return to normal. She never expected this. Her phone was in her hand before she consciously decided to call him. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then voicemail, his voice, calm and familiar, asking her to leave a message. Please pick up, she said after the beep, her voice breaking. Please. I'm home. I saw the note. This isn't what I wanted. Please call me back. She hung up and immediately called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Panic clawed at her throat. She tried texting, I'm so sorry. Please come home. We need to talk about this. The message showed as delivered but not read. Another text, you can't just leave like this. We have to talk about this like adults. Still delivered. Not read. She sank into the kitchen chair, the same one he'd sat in Monday morning when this whole nightmare began. Had it only been 5 days? It felt like a lifetime had passed between that morning coffee and this midnight crisis. Her mind raced backward, replaying not just this week but months, years, of their marriage. When had she started feeling restless? When had contentment begun to feel like stagnation? He'd been steady, reliable, present. He'd supported her career changes, her hobbies, her friendships. He'd been patient with her moods, understanding during stressful times, consistently kind even when she hadn't deserved it. And she'd rewarded that by manufacturing drama, by seeking validation through her ex-boyfriend's attention, by testing him to see if he loved her enough to fight. The note's words burned in her mind. I've spent 3 years trying to be enough for you. 3 years. Their entire marriage. Had he really been feeling inadequate that whole time? How had she not seen it? Or had she seen it and simply not cared, too focused on her own nebulous dissatisfaction to notice his quiet suffering? She looked around the kitchen, at the coffee maker he'd cleaned before leaving, at the dish towel folded neatly by the sink, at the grocery list on the refrigerator in his handwriting with items she'd mentioned wanting. Evidence of care in every corner, and she'd been too blind to appreciate it. Her phone buzzed. Her heart leaped, but it was just the group chat from tonight, someone posting photos from the club. She saw herself in the background of one, Jason's hand on her back, her head thrown back laughing at something. They looked intimate in a way that made her stomach turn now. Had someone sent these to him? Is that what finally pushed him to leave? She called his brother. It rang 4 times before a sleepy, irritated voice answered. Do you know what time it is? Is he there? She didn't bother with pleasantries. Please, I need to talk to him. A long pause. He asked me not to let you talk to him tonight. Said you'd call. Please. There's been a misunderstanding. I didn't mean. He was pretty clear about what happened. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of this, but my brother showed up at my door at 10 o'clock with a suitcase and his wedding ring in his pocket. Whatever you didn't mean, The damage is done. I need to explain, she pleaded into the phone, aware of how pathetic she sounded and not caring. 5 minutes. Just let me talk to him for 5 minutes. His brother sighed heavily. He's asleep. Took something to help him sleep, actually. First time I've ever seen him take anything stronger than aspirin. He was pretty wrecked. The image of her husband, her steady, composed husband, so distraught he needed medication to sleep, hit her like a slap. I'll come over. I'll wait. I don't care how long. That's not a good idea. He was very clear that he needs space. If you show up here, I'll have to ask you to leave, and that won't help anyone. His voice softened slightly. Look, give him a few days. Let him process. Then maybe you two can talk like rational adults. I don't have a few days. He left his ring. He said his lawyer would contact me. His ending our marriage over a stupid, she stopped herself before saying misunderstanding again. Was it really a misunderstanding? Over what? A stupid what? She couldn't answer. Because it wasn't stupid to him. It was the final straw in what the note revealed had been years of feeling inadequate, of trying and failing to make her happy, of weathering tests he'd never asked to take. Get some sleep, his brother said, not unkindly. Things might look different in the morning. The line went dead. She sat at the kitchen table as the hours crawled past. She reread the note dozens of times, each reading revealing new layers of pain she'd been too self-absorbed to notice. She scrolled through her photos, their wedding day, vacations, quiet moments at home. In every picture, he was looking at her with an expression of such open affection that it made her chest ache. And how had she been looking at him? Distracted in some, barely engaged in others, going through motions. At 4 a.m, she finally dragged herself upstairs. His side of the closet gaped empty. He'd taken clothes, toiletries, the essentials of a life being carefully extracted from their shared space. She collapsed on the bed fully dressed and cried until she had nothing left. She woke to harsh daylight and a pounding headache. Her phone showed no new messages from him but 17 from the group chat and 3 from Jason. Jason's messages made her feel sick. Great seeing you last night. Sorry I had to bail early. Then, we should grab dinner next time I'm in town. And finally, just the two of us. Like old times. Old times. She'd been chasing old times, old feelings, old validation, and in doing so, had destroyed something real and present and good. She spent Saturday in a fog, calling his phone every few hours and getting voicemail. She sent texts that went unread. She thought about driving to his brother's but knew that would only make things worse. Sunday, she finally got a response. Not from him, from an email address she didn't recognize. The subject line read, regarding dissolution of marriage. Her hands shook as she opened it. A lawyer's letter, professional and cold, outlining initial steps for an uncontested divorce. He was making it easy for her, even now. No fighting over assets, no blame, just a clean exit from a marriage he'd apparently been drowning in while she'd been too busy testing him to notice. Monday morning, she called in sick to work. She couldn't imagine facing people, making small talk, pretending her world hadn't imploded. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table with his note and tried to write a response. I'm sorry seemed inadequate. I didn't mean it was probably a lie. Some part of her had meant it, had wanted to provoke a reaction, had been willing to risk their marriage to feel something. She thought about what the note had said. I hope you found whatever you were looking for tonight. What had she been looking for? Excitement? Validation? Proof that she was still desirable, still interesting, still worth fighting for? And she'd looked for it in all the wrong places, from all the wrong people. The man who'd actually fought for her, quietly, consistently, for 3 years, had been right in front of her. He'd fought by showing up every day, by being patient with her restlessness, by loving her even when she made it difficult. And she'd mistaken his steadiness for indifference, his trust for apathy. By Tuesday, she'd drafted a letter. Not an email, not a text, an actual letter, handwritten, words chosen carefully. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve the chance to explain. But you deserve to know that you were always enough. More than enough. The problem was never you. It was me, looking for drama because I'd mistaken stability for boredom, mistaken peace for complacency. You said you spent 3 years trying to be enough for me. I spent 3 years being too blind to see that I already had everything I needed. I'm sorry I tested you instead of trusting you. I'm sorry I manufactured problems because I didn't know how to appreciate what we had. I don't know if this is fixable. Maybe the damage is too deep. But if you're willing, I'd like to try. Not to go back to how things were. I don't want to repeat the same patterns. But to build something better, something where I show up as a true partner instead of a constant critic. I love you. I should have said it more. I should have shown it better. I'm sorry I realized it too late. She mailed it to his brother's address on Wednesday. Then she did the only thing she could do. She waited. Days passed. Then a week. His lawyer sent paperwork. She couldn't bring herself to sign it. Finally, 2 weeks after that horrible Friday night, her phone rang from his number. Hello. Her voice cracked from disuse and hope. I got your letter. His voice sounded tired, worn. And a long pause. And I think we should talk. In person. There's a coffee shop on Main Street. Thursday at 2. Yes. Yes, I'll be there. This doesn't mean I'm coming back, he said quickly. It just means I'm willing to listen. I understand. Okay. That word again, but this time it sounded different. Not resigned, not final, just open. Thursday at 2, she arrived early, taking a corner table with clear sight of the door. When he walked in, he looked older somehow, the weight of the past 2 weeks evident in the lines around his eyes. But he came. He sat down. He listened. And slowly, painfully, honestly, they began the work of understanding what had broken and whether it could be repaired. There were no guarantees, no fairytale reconciliation. Just 2 people, finally being truthful with each other and themselves, trying to figure out if love and commitment were enough to rebuild what manipulation and testing had torn down. The road ahead would be long. But for the first time in years, they were walking it together, with open eyes and honest hearts.